that before we get a little bit too far here?
Well, I mean, you can change channels. You do lots of interviews that aren't me, and so they don't have to listen if they don't want to. And I do try to maybe provide a longer form response that isn't the right bullet and on that you just have to trust me or something, or trust what I've said, and just, I think that's where a lot of this stuff is at. We don't get the rest of the story or the context, and then how do you make an honest, um, uh, educated, decision, or come to a conclusion that is more, you know, together. And I get, personally myself, there's a lot of people that say stuff and I go, well, how, on what basis are they saying that? Where's the logic here? And so I'm trying to provide that. If it doesn't work for everybody, I understand that we're not all the same. And
Right,
so there may
and
be a
nobody's
thing to
forcing
say.
them to watch the show. Nobody's forcing them to watch the show, Juan. But something else we can bring to the audience attention also. I did this emergency broadcast earlier today. We're getting a lot of reports of scammers also that are using my name. They're using Janine's name. They're trying to entice people to invest in cryptos, and they're trying to lure them in through WhatsApp and stuff like that. But on top of that, we're getting reports in the last couple of days here of different, what appears to be AI driven videos that are taking sound bites from truthers, maybe readjusting what they're saying. And again, in the hopes here to thwart people into some of these maybe Ponzi scheme and investments. Do you want to speak to that also, Juan?
I
This seems to
do.
be very
I do.
prevalent. You and I talked about this months ago that it was coming, and here we are. We're seeing that manifest now. But do you want to add to that a little bit here again before we go too far?
Well, for example, over the weekend, we had 5 different um, uh, programs and pieces on X, etc., that I had to throw my people at pretty hard to get removed. They purported to be me. They had channels with my name on it, and they were not me. I don't do any social media. And your audience should know that. Everybody here should know it. They had 15, 18,000 supposed subscribers and all that. And they're telling people, hurry up, quick, buy your Gasara, Nasara, Zimbons, and Dinar, and everything else. And uh, they take snippets of things I said that were not at all what I said, and then turn it into something else. And that was very, very, very disturbing. We have a number of channels along those lines that are out there trying to um, portray themselves as you, I, or other people. And in fact, one of the people I contacted, one of the people whose name was on a different channel that was alleging to have done an interview with me, and it was very disturbing stuff. And I talked to that person over the weekend, and he had the same complaint. When we look back at where these things are coming from, some of the following the locations back, and I know I have better resources than a lot of the other people out there. They were coming from 2 countries. We know the countries and we know the groups involved. And I don't want to say, but it's actually very upsetting. Um, these are supposedly allies for us in the background, and those countries are not blocking, assisting, and in fact, they have people, citizens, we would assume, from those locations that are making a tremendous amount of money
Right.
on this graft. And so they look the other way while this is going on. And the only other thing I would say is that it bothers me is there, um, a lot of it was selling gold and silver and stuff like that. And when you looked, by the time they got done, these people were just getting clipped to death, uh, on, frauds. And so that really
Right.
bothered me. The only thing I say, let the buyer beware. Um, I don't have any kind of, a place other than the jennifermack.com and all patriots over at Gumroad that directly promote anybody that's buying. I think I have friends, I've, referred them privately and like that, but I don't do anything like that. And by the way, for anybody that says, if I attend an event, if I go to sign books, whatever, I take no money where I've gone to support an event. In fact, I've gone where people were struggling to kind of help them over the top, so they would be viable. But I never take any pay. I never do anything. If I've done anything, I just bring a few books along or something like that. And I cover my own airfare, I cover my own hotel. I don't take anything for
Right.
doing that because I don't want the confusion for me, is he supporting this? What's the other thing behind it? And I don't pay anybody to put me on the show. There's, some idiots, assholes really, out there saying I'm out, paying people to let me on the show and do our. That's the dumbass thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Look, we're trying to have
We're
an
getting a lot of
intelligent,
weird stuff like that,
important
Juan.
conversation.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you, Juan. I
And
appreciate
those
you
people are trying
clarifying
to
that. There
divide
were
this
some questions.
community. They're trying to
Go ahead.
divide
Sorry.
this community. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
trying to divide this community. What you do, if you have advertisers, if you have people in there, you're a resource that is critical. I think that's why you surviving as long as you have to be in this game right now goes to the fact that your audience trusts you because they've had enough time to see how you operate, how you think, the stuff you say. And the ones that are more sketchy and fly by night and they're getting the latest little whatever and to make a buck or something, it might take a while, but they've gone by the wayside, and a lot more are going to go by the wayside. You're one of the channels that I'm sure will make it through this next tough moment and be on the far side of these events that are really already underway to discuss and report, as we come through this trauma that's just ahead of us. We've all anticipated it for a long time,
Right.
and I'm glad for that. And by the way, you and I, we don't necessarily agree on everything. Janine and I had a conversation many long months ago where, I told her I'm not in that same lane on a lot of the stuff, how she gets what she gets. But from a collegial viewpoint, from a conversation viewpoint, this is somebody that I enjoy talking with, has real, there's a reason why she has survived in the conversation to this point. She's got a certain attitude, skills, presentation. And so I have respect for those that have stayed viable, kept their integrity. And if we have different ways of looking at things, different viewpoints, that's part of the health of the community, that we can have those conversations. So I look forward to being able to come back at later points, intermediately and after the worst of the crisis had, and being able to come on your show with you and answer questions, have a discourse, and somehow be there for this audience as we go through these things together. Is that click for you?
Yeah, it's perfect, Juan. I appreciate that, and thank you for weighing in on that. It was on the minds of a lot of the audience members, and that's why we put out that emergency broadcast earlier today. We know that some viewers, unfortunately, were caught in some of these scams and have lost money, and so we were hard pressed to do that video again. We've been doing these videos for quite some time over the last number of years, but it appears to be accelerating, and we have more and more new viewers watching all the time, and they might not be aware or have the reflexes to protect themselves. So, anyways, guys, if you want more details, go check out the emergency broadcast from 5 p.m. earlier today. On a side note, and as a joke for all the detractors who are saying that you get paid for these events, Clif High's in the chat and he says, "Man, those cowboy boots ain't cheap." Thanks for
And by the way, Cliff and I, we exchanged a note or two earlier today. I really enjoy. He challenges with some of the words and the uniqueness of the words and what he said. And he didn't know that something he sent me earlier in the day, I knew exactly what it was instantly, because having come out of Japan just recently and some of that stuff, it was very funny when he did that. I thought, I bet you there's not 5 people that we know between the two of us that even would know what he was talking.
Fascinating. I'll ask you about Japan a little bit later
I
on,
have
but
a lot
first,
of
let me redirect the folks,
for
guys.
people.
Juan, hold on just a second here. There's a bit of delay
There
between
you
the
go.
and I'm having an
All
echo.
right.
Just hold on a little bit, Juan. I'm going to redirect the audience now to our
All
Rumble
right.
feed. I'm just going to send the link back down here to the YouTube chat. If you guys are still watching us on YouTube, please move over here to Rumble so we can have this no holds barred conversation here with Juan unencumbered. Okay, so let me just remove the YouTube feed here, guys. Give me a sec. Remove, yes, and remove, yes. Okay, I think we're good. Let me just verify. Yes. Okay. So we've got about 6,000 already watching us live here on the Rumble feed, and another 1,000 or so on Twitter. A great audience. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Guys, before we start with Juan here, I wanted to show you guys a few news items that we've picked up here just in the last week or so to set the stage for this conversation. And then we're going to go all the way back to early 2024 here for this Antarctica meeting and how perhaps there were different marching orders given out here and how we were about to change into a new phase of this war. And this is the conversation I want to have with Juan tonight with respect to this final countdown, these events that are just around the corner, Trump and the military. So first, let's get to it here. We had, of course, the verdict on Trump being a felon here, again, suggesting that we had clearly entered now. There was a demarcation to this next phase into the war. We had Robert De Niro also having his meltdown in all of Hollywood here just before that. I thought it was funny. We had the Clif High, the CIA plant. What's that doing in there? That's not supposed to be there. You guys can go check that out on Rumble. Of course, we had the Fauci testimonies, very, very damaging here to the COVID narrative. There's guys like Elon Musk suggesting that perhaps this guy should be in jail. And of course, now just today, also, Hunter Biden was convicted on these gun charges, all three of them. And on top of that, we have criminal deferrals now on him and his brother. And now, on top of that, the FBI admitted that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. I thought this was interesting because I lost a YouTube channel on this a couple of years back, and now apparently it wasn't false information. It wasn't Russian propaganda, as the 51 intelligence agencies were saying, but apparently it's true. So there's a lot of big news coming out. And yeah, again, here, these criminal referrals here for the for Hunter and James Biden. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. And finally, we're just now entering what Juan was talking about for a number of years here, and in earnest, maybe in the last couple of months, perhaps this Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. So all of that in the span of about a week and a half here, suggesting that yes, very much indeed, we're getting into this new phase of the war. So no wonder people can't sleep. And if you guys are looking for a better night's sleep, please check out Pure Sleep here, Clif High's concoction. You can find that at beyondmystic.net. If you click on the shop page there, you'll get the link and the discount code available for you guys there. Juan, I say all of this here, and I kind of say it jokingly, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you after this particular video interview you had with Nino. You were on your way back from Antarctica at the time. I have a screenshot here on the slide. 3 weeks ago, I talked to Carrie Cassidy in this particular war correspondent report, and we were looking at that a video, that meeting in Antarctica. And she was suggesting that she had heard, and I had heard some of the same rumors, that a lot of people had been invited there to have this meeting where new marching orders, for lack of better terms, were given, and that we were, in fact, going to be entering a new phase of the war. Now, to the extent that you can, Juan, and I know this could be complicated, I don't want to get you into trouble or any operations into trouble. What was happening in Antarctica? Who were you meeting? What was the agenda? What was the desired outcome of it? And to what extent did that set the stage perhaps for this, for us entering here now, as I said, this new phase of the war? And to set that conversation for a good meme, I don't remember if you saw this movie, but yeah, it was Brad Pitt asking what was in the bag, but in this case, he's asking what's in Antarctica. So what the hell's going on in Antarctica? Juan, let's start there, man.
Well, let me just let's see how I can answer this correctly. I'll speak only for myself. I think it's important that people. I would hope people are stretching their imaginations a bit. You know that on not just dozens or hundreds even, but on thousands of different subjects, you are not getting a straight answer from companies, governments, institutions all around you. You're getting bull. They expect you to there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. And so why would we go there? It's like saying, okay, we went to the moon and been there, done that, and let's get on with life. And nothing to see here. Does that make sense? Is that really, is there other things happening? And what motivation that, people that we have in positions of authority in our government, what would be the motivation not to give us a straight answer? For example, the weaponry that we have, of course, we have steps beyond most people's real capability even to imagine, with things from satellites, the level at which we can observe things, conversations, etc. It may be a right way of saying it may be 100 years ahead of your imagination. And so, but why would that be obscured from you? Remember, the day before 9/11, there was this briefing where we were told that trillions and trillions, I think it was 5.6 trillion,
Had gone missing from
was
the
missing
Pentagon. Yeah.
from the Pentagon. And so, an absolutely unimaginable number if you get right down to it. At a time when our national budget was about that, every dollar transacted in America amounted to that number in a year. And, so how could that go missing? Well, it's just an accounting error. We're pretty sure it's here somewhere. We're just trying to figure it out. And then amazingly, all the books, all the paperwork, all the staff, all the personnel that were involved in that audit were in exactly the location in the Pentagon where the missile hit. And then it, destroyed everything. There's nothing to do with the records. And by the way, this isn't the first time something like that had happened. When I was down in Arkansas working on Whitewater, and we had all the materials on the aircraft bringing the drugs back into the U.S. and all of the bank account stuff and the black money budgets that was coming in through various accounting firms, the largest off Wall Street brokerage firm in the world, outside of New York City. The largest brokerage firm in the world wasn't in Brussels or Paris or Tokyo or Germany, London even. Largest off Wall Street brokerage firm in the world was Little Rock, Arkansas, Robertson Investments. Well, what in the world was going on there? It was the black money. It was the money that doesn't go onto an account that Congress gets to line item and decide how it's being spent. It was money that was made off the books by the intelligence agencies, primarily at that time CIA, for operations all over the world. And it was being money laundered through Arkansas.
Can you stay with me here, Juan? I see where you're going, but I want to redirect here to Antarctica. The question really is,
I'm coming
what was
to
on
it.
the
I'm
agenda
coming
for
to
this
it.
meeting? What was the desired outcome? And was it in fact setting the stage here for this next phase into the war? You've just circled back to Arkansas, Little Rock, the drug money, all that, and of course the attack on the Pentagon and the missing money. Tie that into Antarctica here and how that sets the stage for today, Juan.
Well, again, where was John Kerry on election day 2016 when Hillary lost and Trump won? On planet
Having a meeting
Earth,
with the penguins. Yes.
he was down there feeding the penguins in Antarctica. What the fuck?
Right.
Then, when it was determined, when Hillary conceded, Newt Gingrich was helping Trump, had stepped in late in the campaign to be of assistance. And when Trump won, where did Newt Gingrich suddenly decide to fly off to a few days after Kerry left? The baton gets passed. In Antarctica, testing the water, penguins and kayaking around and everything else. Bullshit. Where
Mhm.
was Obama's last trip as president of the United States? Where did he go? And by the way, think about this. Um, the place that so many of the elitists from Germany and Pelosi, whether or not your audience wants to hear it, not a place where people of color are readily accepted with open arms is often the rule. Now you
Right.
get into a public place and oh no, that's all fine. No, you got plenty of places there that a person of color is not accepted, not welcome. Um, and it's a very unusual area. And of course, you have Chile next door. In southern Chile, there's places that are fenced off where there's German enclaves that have been there all the way back to the war, and with unknown numbers of people living in the hillsides. In the early 80s, the best estimate that our intelligence agencies had, just one of those enclaves had 35,000 people in it. How many would there be today with the continued build out and populations and all that going into the base of the Andes there?
Right.
Um, but the other thing is that when Obama went down there, that was his last foreign trip, and he hit a couple of countries, then magically ended up down at Bariloche. He disappears for a while. He and Michael are out horseback riding and enjoying the view and everything else, but everybody else shows up. Bezos from Amazon, Musk, Zuckerberg, all sorts of people are reported to have come
Buzz
in on their
Aldrin
private
also was
planes.
there. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church
Yes,
was there also. Okay,
yes.
you're leading up here to a big powwow, and
I'm
there's a
setting the
reason all of
stage.
these people are
You
getting down
can't paint
there.
a picture. You can't paint
Yeah,
a picture unless you get the background in.
right.
If you don't have the background, you don't have the setting, you don't know what you're looking at.
Mhm.
Okay. So, is there a stink around Antarctica? And yes, there's some stuff that I'm not going to say today. I'll say it at a later time. And part of the reason I'll say it at a later time and not today is because at this exact moment, our entire focus has to be on removing from leadership, not just the United States, but the other 71 countries, where this crew, this wrecking ball crew, has come in and destroyed lawful elections around the world and put puppets into place that can be puppeteered from places that you haven't even imagined existed.
Right.
Putin himself said, when Tucker was talking to him, Putin responded to one of his questions and he said, "You don't even know the names of the people that are running America. Biden isn't running America. Obama isn't running Biden. Obama is as much a tool in somebody's hands as Biden is. He's just a puppet
Mhm.
doing what he's told. He's somebody's lapdog. So who's running America and by extension, causing the chaos, the wars around the world? Who's prodding Russia, baiting Russia into a nuclear conflict? And why does it benefit this them, they, whoever they are? Why would those entities benefit if America and Russia went to war? What's their point? They are Nero, the spirit of Nero. They want to burn the whole world down north of the equator so they can turn the world upside down and start over again, just like turning an hourglass upside down. And they want to rebuild the world from the south north. And why is that? And why do they have all these? Who's bought into what program? When Obama's off horseback riding, he didn't even know how to get on a horse. Where the fuck was he?
Mhm.
You're right next door. What's going on here? And by the way, this idea that it's some wasteland, only on the top, only on the surface. Believe me, there's a longer conversation has to be had. I will not go completely there today. I'm sorry, but it's not the wrong time. We have to get our house in order here for viability to, even get the opportunity have this down the road. You don't get this situation with these leaders pulling the strings, you know.
Juan, I think we lost your feed.
You will be gone off this planet.
Hold on,
Oh,
Juan, just a
sorry.
sec. We keep losing you in and out here
I
for the
had
last
to
few minutes.
block a call. I had to block a
Ah,
call there. I apologize. It came in. That was my
okay.
fault there.
Also, you appear to be in a parking structure, and your microphone is, or we're losing connection here. And if you could move the car to maybe be a better spot, that would help. A few people in the chat are saying you're breaking up here,
I was
and there's a
actually
little bit of
just
lag
doing
time.
that. I was just
Okay.
doing it. Yeah.
While you do
I
that,
got
let
it.
me give you a chance to redirect to part of that interview. For that, and I can appreciate there's things you can't get into it, and I'm not trying to goat you into that. But in the conversation here you had with Nino,
It's not
it,
time. It's not time, but I will get into that when it's
okay,
appropriate. There's a much more critical, important conversation to be had there. This isn't the day, but go ahead.
no, I understand that, and your answer seems to be here. We need to get our house in order, and a lot of this has to do with taking this parasite offer back here. Around the world here that is playing all of these countries against each other here for an ultimate goal. So I understand that, and I think the audience understood that. Part of my, um, uh, I guess, concern with that interview at the time when I first heard it, and correct me if I'm wrong, my impression was that you were trying to steer the conversation towards pinpointing the problem or having a limited hangout of the problem of this ET conversation to Antarctica having a connection with perhaps the Nazis, and that the conversation for further out into space ETs was not really relevant at this time, but we needed to look at these humans, for lack of better words, I think you were pointing to, who were part of this breakaway civilization and who were running amok here and playing off of each other here on the planet. Is that, first of all, is that a correct interpretation? Did I hear that okay? Do you want to redirect on that? Because a lot of people took offense to the fact that if we are going to have a real conversation about fixing the problems on the planet, we can't limit it to a limited hangout of disclosure. We have to look at the bigger pictures and everybody who's involved here and who have their hand in the pots in the human affairs. Can you take maybe a minute or two to redirect on that one?
Um, you know, let me see it in an opaque way, but I think if your listeners are savvy enough to get this. Look at the incidents down in Las Vegas. I was just there over the weekend with the president.
Mhm.
Presentations down there, and so look at these couple of incidents in Vegas where we had people that are. If you look at the videos, these are aliens. Okay, these are monsters, and running around the yard, jumping over fences, getting the dogs all wound up. You look at the video and it's like, oh my gosh. Um, we had. I remember an incident where uh, had a demonstration of one of the Gen 5 suits that can be worn to obscure that somebody is present or in an area. And so this particular demo, that Gen 5 suited person, um, it's a suit that projects a camouflaging image. And it was a bit Fresnel-like. You could almost like in the movie Aliens, where you could kind of see that there was something there, but you had to at first be kind of aware something was going on. If you weren't aware something was going on, you wouldn't really have noticed. And the distance in that particular demo was about 60 feet. Once you knew it was there, you could see with movement like that, it was pretty clear it was there. We're on Gen 7. Somebody offered that there was a Gen 8 that was being tested suit. I don't know if that's true or not. I suppose it probably is. But as they get better, not only are they projecting what's behind them, same thing with aircraft and other systems. Um, and so you're looking at an image that's being projected on the front of your suit that people see, that the camera on the backside is actually taking the picture. And so it's being projected, and it's they're getting better and better, obviously. But you can project also if you've ever been down to Vegas and you go in through, for example, Caesar's Hotel and the shopping area next to it. They have these amazing statues with projection that when they come alive, oh my gosh, it looks totally real, and yet they look like marble when you walk by them until they get into that animated stage and they can talk and all sorts of things with the holographics, etc. Or a holographic image on the stage. Just because something looks a certain way doesn't mean that that's what it is. Remember Hillary during the campaign in 2016 when it was getting clear that she was in danger of losing. Hillary asked her campaign manager, Podesta, is it time to play the alien card? Now, important to consider, it means that not that real aliens were going to be brought out of a box somewhere and turned loose on the streets, but that some kind of a storyline involving aliens might be played upon the world. Teller himself, the German rocket scientist, told his secretary famously before he died that one of the steps in the game to deceive the whole world, this alien card, and confusing the whole world, even the elect, if it were possible, concerning the alien presence and agenda. Now, does that mean there's no aliens, that it's all a ruse? No. In fact, I may disturb some of my church going friends by saying that I'm very comfortable in saying that there are other races out there and that we are not exclusive in this universe, and you could say even this galaxy with our race. Is there, and even from a scriptural standpoint, there's plenty of stuff that talks about watchers,
Right.
the Nephilim themselves, these
The
giants,
Elohim. Yeah.
Elohim. Well, and remember, Satan, Lucifer, the devil. Um, when the garden was invaded, if you go by a scriptural version, it was an alien that came into the garden. By the way, the way they describe him is the green man, for he hid amongst the green leaves of the trees of the garden. He camouflaged himself until he wanted to be seen and could taunt and could whisper and could beguile, which is a word that has sexual innuendo, by the way, Eve into his way of thinking and bait her into sin. So, with that in mind, are there aliens? Well, the scriptures talk about it, and I
Mhm.
think are actually pretty clear. So, the
So to answer the
72.
question, Juan, you're open to the bigger context of the ET conversation, but what you were suggesting to the audience in that particular interview is that right now we need to focus on the bigger problem at hand,
Well,
and that
let me
was
back up. I don't want to be confusing. Let me finish
okay.
this one comment real quick, and
Okay.
I apologize, but it is the long-windedness that I'm accused of, and probably rightfully so. If you look at the way it would be used, while there's always little truth to a lot of these things, but then somebody gets the idea how they're going to twist it and use it to their advantage. Is there just like those aliens in Las Vegas conveniently running around the yard getting all the dogs barking? Um, are you really seeing that? Or are you seeing somebody's holographic projection that's designed to begin to move the conversation a particular direction so that you can use that energy? See, and Clif's a master at this. He looks at word usage. He looks at how it propagates out through the internet, anticipating where global consciousness is going by seeing what's being spoken about in the background, and then moving forward with that. Is it some uh, holographic out into the future of consciousness? People are telegraphing something that they know intuitively and speaking about it before it becomes widely understood or known or something like that. Uh, there's some consensus coming together. I'm sure he'd describe it differently and do better.
I think you froze again there,
We have
Juan.
to really think about is somebody playing with us, and to what extent are we vulnerable to those to that playing? Okay, are we susceptible to be conned? A
For
good
sure.
con man, he has to kind of know his victim, and then
Mhm,
he'll kind of give you clues, and all of a sudden you come to this conclusion. Well,
mhm.
maybe he sifted those clues in, just like Hollywood does. So when it does happen, you be uh, 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 prepared to come to based on inputs they've given you, and you think it's your idea when it was somebody else's idea. You just finally okay,
So essentially, you're
um,
answering, let's be
and
careful here and be weary of all the predictive programming that seems to be afoot here for the last number of years. You've just mentioned we could go way back to Werner von Braun, also on his deathbed, talking about playing the ET card. So this has been in the field for a while. So you're saying there's there's a lot of smoke and mirrors to what's happening right now, and you're trying to stay focused on perhaps maybe the bigger, closer concern here on the planet at this time.
well, yes, because these people that we're fighting are highly motivated. Maybe Hillary didn't get permission to play the ET card back when. Somebody else does have permission to do it now. And they're
Mhm.
preparing us with all these little clues. One thing I would add, they always have to do it on the numbers. Their game, we're dealing with a cult. It's really a religious, they are Luciferians. The people that set up the UN, the people that have done all of these, uh, psyops over generations on the numbers. And for example, let me give you a date numbers. 1947, in the middle of the year, 1947, during the summer, the creation of the CIA, creation of the Air Force, Roswell.
Mhm.
Why is that such an important magic number? Because it has to do with the other physics that's not taught in the regular courses that you get to be part of or just go sign up for at the universities. You have to be invited to learn that other side of the physics. It's a club, and they're very careful to screen families, bloodlines, people that will play the game right, secret handshakes. And if you're blessed to be able to be invited into the club to learn the other physics and to understand why some of these programs operate the way they do, um, it's probably because also they know that they've got leverage on you or your family or a history. You won't easily leave the tribe. You won't divulge something that's going on. How do you spend, 5, 6 trillion dollars and nobody finds it till the last second? And then all the paperwork magically happens to be at just the right place at just the right time to get destroyed. The reason I mentioned Arkansas in part, we
Uh-huh.
had all the records related to the black op money
Mhm.
and the drug flights and everything. All of the agencies involved were told to gather all their original um, evidence, the stuff that people would testify from firsthand, gathered together because the Senate banking committee was going to do an investigation of this stuff and look at what's going on, which was wonky all by itself. It was going to be the banking committee and not other stuff.
Right.
But yeah,
We can
and
add
all of that.
Building 7 to that story as well, same kind of story
That's
there, and of
right.
course, the
2 planes,
Pentagon
three
also.
buildings. What the fuck?
Right. Right, right.
So
Can
then,
we
well,
switch
hold on. I
gears?
want to finish this one little thing. So
Okay.
all of those records went to Oklahoma and were in the Oklahoma federal building
Building. Yeah.
2 weeks before it magically, miraculously gets blown up. And then when it didn't all get destroyed, they declare it unsafe to be in there, and they go in and plow it all under the ground so that nobody could find it because it's unsafe to even go
Yeah.
in and start sorting out the records. This is a plan, a plot, and the people involved. They are a religious cult, and uh, uh, we're fighting them right now. That's what this fight is all about. Even going all the way to the bottom of the planet. If understand you're fighting something that is, um, when you talk to people within their religious beliefs, they go to a different place mentally, emotionally. Idea of God, eternity, um, this hidden knowledge, secret knowledge. It's very. It can grab your soul, and you can't let go of it easily. And so they believe this cult of people believe that they get people in the cult and get them to make their bones in there, and they won't leave. And they're also threatened within their families and other things. Uh,
Mhm.
they believe they're superior. They believe that they're above everything else. They have some extra mission beyond everybody else around them, a sense of elitism. And you can get them to go along with anything. And that's exactly what's going on here. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that's interesting because that sets the stage for what's happening now with the lawfare. In one sense, you said Hillary Clinton wasn't given the permission to use the alien card or the Project Bluebeam, but yet we're going down this path of lawfare. And a lot of people have suggested that we were going there, and I want to have your take on this for the audience members too, in order to not necessarily bring down Mr. Trump. Quite to the contrary, his numbers keep going up. He's raised $500 million since the ruling last week, but at the same time, we're seeing more and more precedents being set here that could in turn be used against this machine you're talking about here that needs to be removed from the planet. Is that what we're seeing? We saw in the setup in the last couple of years, Trump set up CNN and 60 Minutes here when they were suggesting that the Biden laptop couldn't be confirmed or verified, and he says, of course we can. And of course we now have the fact the CIA, the FBI just admitted that 2 weeks ago. And now we're seeing when he was talking to the media about the criminal Biden family and the fact that the media were criminals for not even reporting on it, all of this is coming back now because of these precedents they have set against Trump. So on one hand, his popularity is going up, but on the second hand, now we have ammunition and redirects towards this criminal cabal here who are hell-bent on taking the show. Is that what happened? Is that a direction, or is that a result perhaps of this Antarctica meeting to go down further down this path of lawfare? And if so, where does it go from here? Are we going to see a Biden removal? Are we going to see more lawfare, or are we going to have people half cock on the street here starting to hang politicians because they're angry about all this shit coming out? Where does this go? It appears to be a very a high match tinderbox here in our realm. Juan, what's going on?
Okay, let me try to unwind this a little bit for folks. Um, let's just for the sake of discussion, um, conjecture that there is some uh, discussions taking place at the bottom of the planet. Do you think that those discussions would involve uh, favorably anything to do with President Trump, or would they be anti-Trump?
I would say they would be anti-Trump.
And do you think there would be, there's a lot of people, and it's actually, I'll just say that it has been painful to me to hear it. And I understand where it comes from. I understand how it could, people might read into things and be able to come to these conclusions as just false. You can logically come to a wrong conclusion fairly readily. But there's a lot of people that have fallen victim to this idea that Trump is somehow he's disingenuous. He's just doing a show for his masters, and that he is actually helping lead America, lead the American people down the primrose path to destruction. And so he's baiting them in like our enemies would do, the enemies of humanity. He is part of some satanic, evil, Luciferian cabal, portraying himself as a good guy for all the people, but ultimately he's going to dump the American people like the devil himself would do and take the money, take the prize. He's going to dump us, and we're just going to end up um, uh, being snookered again by this con man Trump. Okay, so they've got this in their mind that Trump is somehow part of the con and is going to be laughing as America gets sucked into whatever these evil masters want to do. And I would ask your audience to do the mental gymnastics. Even if he was that person, would he sacrifice his family, even his grandkids, to pull that off, or would he do it just by himself? Does he actually, within all the things that you've seen of him, does that type of deception actually appear to have any legs to it? Or is it, are the people proposing such a thing actually trying to divide us, throw us off the scent of who the real monsters are? Does it favor, um, is there any advantage for Trump selling his soul and selling his entire family and his fortune down the river in order to pull this con off? Does that make sense?
Well, let me answer for me. I think the audience would agree, the people watching our show, absolutely not. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to have legs. That being said, and it appears that everything he's doing is altruistic, even though he might not be the best guy in the world. Maybe he has some ego, and I'm again getting into personality. But in terms of the
He's a
role
New
he's
Yorker. He's
playing,
got ego. You can't hold it against him.
right? Exactly, exactly. This is what I mean. So if you
That's
take the
why he's where
personality
he's
out, and I
at.
think that's a
If he
trap.
wasn't,
That's a trap for
if
a
you
lot of the
didn't have
audience.
a New Yorker, if you didn't have a New Yorker in this fight, we wouldn't be here. Okay, that's the
Exactly.
causticness, the New Yorker drive is part of why it works.
Right. Exactly. So I'm with you on that. But at the same time, and again, I encourage the audience members and the people who have Trump derangement syndrome to maybe get out of the personality. He does have a personality, and look at the actions and look at the sacrifices this guy's made over the last number of years to be where he is. And in turn, for us to be where we're at, some would argue that we would be even further down the line here of having our necks around a noose if he hadn't played that role here in the last number of years. That being said, Juan, and you have to be honest also with the audience, and you have to be responsible. I have to be responsible with the audience. When we look at the Q phenomena, one would say the same thing. Oh, is this a big psyop? Is this a, trust the plan, stay at home, do nothing? That rhetoric that we've heard, that we've got it all, everything's going to happen, it's in God's hands. It seems to suggest that people just need to sit on their laurels and do nothing, and that perpetuates this external myth savior. Again, disempowering the audience. So I hear
Okay,
what you're saying,
that's a
but at the
really
same time, we
important
have to
point.
be honest here.
Okay, so that's a really important point. Are you, when you say that, and I'm asking everybody to think about this for a second, did Q tell you to sit at home, the Q operation? It's actually a team. I'm the one that helped to coin that term into this whole thing. Did the Q team actually tell you to sit at home and do nothing? Or was that people and algorithms from the outside trying to tell you what the Q operation was telling you, how
Well,
you were
the
supposed to
the
react?
the most repeated phrase was trust the plan. It doesn't say stay at home, do nothing, but some people implied that, intimated that, and perhaps, as you say, some algorithms were perpetuating that meme in order to get into the Bolshevik revolutions, how this story has been used time and time again to fool people into doing nothing, thinking that there's the white hats in the background doing everything. We've seen this plan play out before. But I understand your point here that this is part of the war, and we are into this fog of war at this point. Let's get back now
Well, hold
into
on,
this.
hold on. I want to finish this
Okay.
point. I know we're rushing through, but this, you can't just race past this for a second. This is one
Okay.
of the most important questions that, uh, most relevant questions at this exact moment in America. Um, think of all the anons that were given clues and then had extensive conversations within the Anon community. Extensive. And what did the Anons do? They were a gamer crowd with a little bit of help that went out and did their own investigation to dig up clues
Yeah.
and to find facts and tie threads together. They self-educated. When you do research, if you do the research as opposed to just reading about the research, it has a different weight and value in your ability to analyze and look at things. And so the Q community, those people that were watching their own investigation and then adding into the conversation as a group, were actually being very active. They learned how to search a thing out, how to find information, the truth, how to ferret out fact from fiction. And they found where there was fish bones that you really couldn't digest at the time that needed to wait to where they might come in and have meaning later on. It was harder
The
to
time
digest.
deltas. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. And so the point is, in fact, the Q operation did not ever foster the people sit on their hands and just watch. And in fact, the people that were just watching were not truly in the community. Uh, uh, and this idea, yes, while they're saying trust the plan, doesn't mean to be stagnant. Stagnant water, it gets a stink to it. It's sodiferous, okay?
Right.
But instead, it gave the basics to the community for research investigation, so that when we reached that time where the inputs could not be done safely, when President Trump was not in office and those communities could not be protected, people would continue on with what they had learned and be able to look at their own pieces of information that come in, sift them, and seek out the truth. And the ones that have remained in the fight, that are still viable, they may not have a specific place to reside, but within some broader uh, vaporous community, there is a tangibility here that is
Yeah.
still here. Train up a child in the way he should go, and he won't depart from it in his old age. Um, the the fact that the American people, in a broad sense, are not falling for the con of the Biden puppet, with it being him pulling and calling these shots, that there's other things going on behind the scenes, is a crucial component here. How do we save America? It's not a group, just say the Q operation. It is the American people, as in the aggregate, that rise up and become their own version of Q themselves, putting
Mhm.
out memes, putting out statements into their neighborhood, their family, all those people that have said something within their own circle of influence. And then people around them ask questions, they make statements, and we begin to ferret out what's actually true and what isn't. And that's why, even in this false election at 2020 and 2022, they won't be able to pull off another false election in the same way. This external group, these treasonous groups, this Davos crowd, this NATO crowd, this other breakaway civilization crowd, will not be able to do that, because in large numbers, the American people have actually become a version of the Q, asking questions and then
Juan,
answering them.
I have to step in here because I totally agree with that, and my audience would as well. I mean, I also lost another YouTube channel on this very debate. We had a Q versus Trump poster at one point, and we had some people on the other side of the equation suggesting that Q was a big psyop and all that. And I was trying to defend that, and the next day the YouTube channel was down. But I'm with you. This whole movement not just empowered people to do their own research, to see through the lies, to see these time deltas and the future proves past or past proves future, and getting people involved into thinking for themselves and seeing what's happening right now. And I agree with you, that is part and parcel the reason of this great awakening, and why all of these false flags get called out within seconds or minutes of happening right now, because people are on watch. And this is in part because of this Q movement. I'm with you on that. But
Well,
you
let me
mentioned
just add
earlier,
one thing here. Let me just add one little quick little
yeah,
statement. Okay, we'll help all of the algorithms and everything else. Let's do this. Q is Q was a psyop, but not the negative kind.
right.
It was a psychological operation. It was helping to form the psychology of the people, especially with young people. You understand that the Q operation, while it had people of all different ages involved, was primarily aimed community. And so it was try to figure the problem. Within this audience, you have lots of people that they did play the video games. Many of them wrote the video games. And they would get into a situation. You got to hop, you got to jump, you got to turn left, you got to grab this thing out of the box, you got to have this crystal to get through this door, whatever. And so they keep going back till they figure it out. They ask other gamers, I can't get through this thing. Is there a certain thing they have cheats? They do it until they figure it out. And at first they can't get through level 3. Then they can't get through level 6 or 9. And they work together to figure it out. What these game writers have done, the sneaky little farts, what they've done to make it so hard to get through the game that makes it fun and a challenge. Within the community, people have learned how to network, work together. They were trained in that era, and then it was taken away from them. You realize people want what they can't have. The more they take Trump away from the American people, the more they won't get me have. That's every teenager on the planet. Okay. And it's a counter psychology in a psyop operation. You've been conditioned, trained, but was it all negative? If you're within the group, remember, Trump told the world he was invited to run.
Yeah.
Who invited him? He's told you.
Right.
200 generals. Okay, 200 generals. What are you talking about? 200 generals asked him. The Q operation is augmented, not led. Very important difference. Augmented by AI systems, the best on the planet. And those AI systems have created certain checkpoints, like levels in a game, that everything has to go through before it can go to the next level. Some of it is predictive by date. We know what date the election 2024 is scheduled. That is fixed in time and has been for a very, 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 very long time. So summer solstice, we have dates that are fixed in time. Then there's other checkpoints that are based on societal things and are imprinted with certain branding. One of the key brands within this whole operation is 17 and the reverse of 17, which is 71. So, for example, and both sides want to own 17. It's a magical number. And in magic, 3 times 17 is 51. So the maximum number of the magic, when you're trying to imprint it on stuff, if you want to own it on the numbers, which is a critical aspect of this thing, 3 times 17 is 51. What's the most magical secret base where all the magic happens in the American continent? Area 51. When you had the group that came out with all the signatures, the intelligence agents saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian PSYOP operation. Okay, how many leaders did they need from around the country to sign on to that? 30, 40, 50? No, 51. Why 51? They said 50, but then the person that presented it, he's also a signer. 51. They do it in plain sight. Sometimes the number doesn't jump out till you understand, oh, and then the total was 51. Another number that is kind of key in here, they flip things around to do it in plain sight. When we're trying to flip the magic on them, both sides are trying to own the numbers. They use symbology, like the sidewalk around the gravesite of President Kennedy. When you look at the sidewalk from overhead,
looks like a Q. Yeah.
17. Why was that important? Because they had to encapsulate, they had to seal off the magic with the flame in encapsulated within that queue. We own you. We control you. Your magic won't get loose. What does a witch do when it is channeling demons and then trying to take their power and force the demons to do their will? They create a circle of magical wall that the demon can't get through, and then they control the demon from within the circle that protects them. Okay. And this is, this is basic witchcraft 101, right?
Mhm.
Um, they're trying to do magic on the American people. When we try to reverse that, to flip that, to break it up, we use numbers, their numbers, and it's like looking in a mirror. On one side it's 17, on the other side it's 71. So, for example, when Trump was speaking in Las Vegas over the weekend, both at the Ahern Hotel and then at the rally, he said something that was very important. He was noting all of the donations from the American citizens to his campaign and to his legal defense fund. And he gave this number, nearly $500 million over the previous couple of days.
Right.
The largest series of campaign donations in history in that period of time. Which is totally a fact. But then he added that a third of them were from average, not people of great means citizens. It wasn't just a couple billionaires. It wasn't a couple software giants or somebody that's going to benefit because Trump's there because they're going to make hay and get a tax break or military contract or something. Okay. What he said, and it was very important, talking back to this elite class, this Davos crowd that's trying to puppeteer America, he said the average donation by all the people that had made donations over that period of days, the average donation was $71. So it was very inclusive of all the citizenry.
Right.
This is in the aggregate. The American people are backing him. And it's a reversal of that energy. It's breaking the spell. Um, whose computer, whose whatever, put everything in there to come up with that exact number. I can tell you that it was in a zone. He used that exact number as a specific message to the crowd behind all of this, opposing his comeback, opposing this moment in history as a specific message to them. It is this 71. It's a reversal of all of their power and energy. And you'll see this over and over and over again, because part of the spells, part of the magic is who owns those numbers, who's going to control them, because 17 as a number is essentially doesn't favor one side or the other. It's like a sword or any other type of a tool. It can be used for good or evil. And so he's wielding it as a tool to send a message. And by the way, the 17th book of the Bible, the book of Esther. And in the book of Esther, the 17th book of the Bible, what's the key in the story of the book? It's all about a reversal of fortune, a reversal or mirroring. One evil person and their group intended to do their evil on another group, and take control. And all the evil they did, just like the scripture says, he who digs a pit to destroy his neighbor will himself fall into it.
Mhm.
If you make a trap, if you try to do evil, the reality is, in the end, God is not mocked. Those evildoers will themselves fall victim to what they've done. And so that's what is about to happen here. All the things that they have tried to do to Trump, uh, where they've created.
Is backfiring back on them.
That's right. They've proven that you can indict a former president. They've proven that legally you can send them to jail.
Right.
You can do all these different things, and they're not immune. So they've
Mhm.
gone in. They've worked to make the laws favor what they want to do. But what they've really done is they've dug a trap that they themselves are about to fall into and fall victim to. The very thing they created. See, in the story of Esther, Haman made a hangman's device and had it put out behind harem, where the other girls in the harem were at. And he was going to, after this big party where Esther had hosted the king and everybody else, Haman and all that, he was going to have Mordecai, the good guy, taken out and hung. And in those days, their hangman's device isn't a noose around the neck, it was a spear up the rectum. And then they would be hoisted up, pulled up, straight up and down, and they would slowly slide onto that spear and then bleed out. They didn't die instantaneously. It was a gruesome type of death. And so they wanted to be over everybody. Yeah, we'll raise you up over the city. You can watch the whole city as you bleed out, screaming. And so Haman was hung up over the city. This person who would rule and reign over the whole city, he got to rule and reign over in the last moments of his screaming life. And on the very device that he himself bought and paid for and supervised being built, he himself died on it. I'm telling you, in the legal arena, all the things, God is not mocked. It will happen to the last letter. All the things that they intended to do to Trump will in fact happen to them. And it won't be an injustice when it happens. Justice will prevail. Justice is coming. In fact, I put that on the 2024 coin, the Megador coin. We had a 2023 version. The 2024 version just came out today. And at the bottom of the coin, justice is coming. That is exactly what's coming for all of them.
Okay, so you kind of answered my question with the lawfare where all of this is going, but you kind of tripped me up a little bit when we went back to Antarctica and you said, okay, you talked about this group that's opposing Trump's return and whether or not that sentiment would be positive or negative in Antarctica. Where were you going with that? Let's go back to that here because a lot of people are saying, wait, I thought we were done with Antarctica, but you brought it back here. How does that tie in?